All right, I think we're live here. Hi,
Hey,
everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm sure some of you recognize that guy right there. Or maybe no one's joining us. We'll find out pretty soon.
that's right.
That shirt is,
Talking to ourselves.
yeah, just you and I and the internet. That's the wonderful and world-renowned Reverend David Johnson.
Yeah, an expert on almost nothing.
Perfect. But so excited that I finally scammed Dave into one of my wild schemes, which was going live here on Facebook. I can't think of a better time for you to be sharing with us, Dave. And so I'm just really pumped to see what happens here. You and me and the internet.
Yep.
So seriously, we're in what they're saying, unprecedented time, uncertain time. And what I'm noticing about myself is that I'm getting uncharacteristically brave all of a sudden. I just want to do things that I feel like I've been hemming and hawing over. So here we are, you and I both finally doing this thing.
Yeah.
So unprecedented time. You've been in your own kind of unprecedented time in the last year as you finished your time at Open Door. And so why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing since then, and go ahead.
I've developed a nonprofit called Things That Remain. There's a story behind that name, and I don't have time to go into it now, but I think it is about having invested in things that remain and want to keep doing that with a particular focus on leaders, pastor, ministry type of leaders. But I think in the last several months, my vision for that has expanded beyond just ministry people to people who want to stay in it for the long haul. And my catchphrase there is, but by it, I don't mean the ministry or your career. I mean being a person who can stay in it, meaning their faith. And by faith, I don't mean orthodoxy. I mean being a person full of hope and faith in God, regardless the circumstances, and do that for the long haul. And now I guess it just applies to being full of hope and faith in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. So good luck with that.
It sure does. Will you tell us also a little bit about, you've had a health diagnosis on top of retiring from Open Door and then developing your new nonprofit. Do you want to share a little update on how you're doing and what that means for you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. The symptoms that I have not worsened, and so that's good news. You know, we had to do some traveling here just a little over a week ago, and Bonnie and I found ourselves in a very crowded airport, and then ended up coming home and hearing things that had escalated relative to how many people you should be around and how many things are closed, and kind of went into this dark place a little bit of, we just spent an entire day being around in the kind of environment that couldn't be worse, particularly for someone like me, because with a diagnosis, which is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, that puts me at risk of this virus. Would be a really hard thing for me to tolerate. So, and IPF, a lot of people know who know us, that's the disease that took my father's life some years ago. My oldest sister died of it a little over a year ago. I have another older sister who's at later stages. And then last May, the doctors diagnosed me with the same thing. They were able to show it on the CT scan. And so we're living with that reality. But I'm at the early stages. And so we're just moving forward with whatever, stupid, blind optimism. Not really. It's faith.
Hey, it's a coping strategy. So
Right.
Cheers
Right.
to that.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you is, I mean, just for my own sake. I mean, you have fathered me for many years, but you have fathered many spiritually. And I think all the time, but more often in times when things are feeling unsure, when we're in uncharted territories, when we're experiencing things that we've never experienced before. who we want to hear from becomes really clear. And for me, it's the people that are older than me, my fathers, my mothers, my physical fathers and mothers, my spiritual fathers and mothers. We're looking to people to help us navigate this uncharted territory. So I can't think of a better person to help give us a lens, to help us find ourselves in God's story than you. What would you say to us? What are you saying to yourself? Where would you help us? Where would we remind ourselves of who we are?
The Bible.
Great. We're going to end our conversation now. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about what you just talked about, Annika, about wanting to hear from the fathers and the mothers, the Vicky Degners of the world, I feel that same thing. I want to, who are the people who can tell us that it's going to be okay? And I think one thing that is important is to not, in our attempt to comfort people that it's going to be okay, because it is, don't say stupid things. Because there's some things we don't know relative to their being okay or not. We don't know how far this is going. We don't know how many might die. We don't know if people dear to us are going to get this virus and pay really heavy. We can't give stupid promises. And I would also say, when this thing first happened, I was around some people out of state, no one who the tendency was to kind of just throw some Bible verses around, and faith meant we didn't have any anxiety at all. Faith meant we weren't worried about anything at all. And, it's that fairyland faith that meant we're not going to get sick. We're going to all be healthy, and this is going to blow over. It's just a bad storm. Enjoy the movie, because it's a snow day. That's not what it is. I have had some fun with you guys in family talks about what Paul said in Philippians 4, because I do think we need to read our Bible. So read here. Paul says, "Be anxious for nothing." And my take on that is that I never am anxious for nothing. It's always something. and this is something worth being anxious for. So just be very afraid and all that kind of stuff. And then Jesus goes and says in Matthew 7, don't be anxious for anything at all. Don't worry about what you're going to eat or what you're going to wear. Think about the birds. They don't worry. You know why? They got the brain the size of a pea. Anyway, these are my coping mechanisms to do.
So encouraging.
Isn't it?
It's so encouraging.
Birds are stupid. That's why they don't worry. So take your stupid pills, and you'll be fine. Actually, I think the thing that I would give, and it is what I believe, regardless how we individually survive or don't survive this, is that all will be well. There really are things like this that kind of push you to the edges of what you say you believe, and they kind of force you to embrace, to go, you kind of go, wait, I guess I don't believe this, or, you know what, I really do believe this. And I think the diagnosis at times has given me a taste of that. This thing has created an environment where a lot of us at certain moments are being pushed to places of where am I gonna get my sense of okayness? Like, what do I have to be okay? Do I have to not have the disease? If I get the disease, is that going to be the end of my hope? And I think it kind of drives us down a little bit deeper, or it's an invitation to be driven down a little bit deeper into the things that really anchor us. And God stuff, Christ in you and me stuff. And we were talking about this earlier, but Julian of Norwich in the 1300s, in the context of the Black Death that was going through England, and people were dying left and right, and it was just a horrific thing. And she said this thing that's kind of become, refrigerator magnet material, but it's true. And I think it's an example of something that drives us down into the center of what we believe. And she said, in the middle of this Black Death, all will be well. All will be well. In all manner of things, all will be well. Didn't mean people weren't going to die. Didn't mean more people weren't going to die. Worst case scenario, all will be well. True.
I mean, how do you follow up with that? How do you follow that?
Yeah.
And I think what you're speaking to is this like deep anchoring that we all have to work to find on our own, right? Whether it's through reading our Bible, remembering Julian of Norwich or other saints.
Yeah.
That we got to find our anchor.
Right. I also think, and that's work. And some of you, maybe there's some people listening going, I can't do that. But I think we're better at this than we think we are. There's one of the churches in the Revelation. Remember Jesus, the Spirit through John brought these addresses to the church in Ephesus and the church in Pergamum, and the one church that didn't get a confrontation, a rebuke from Jesus, was the church in Smyrna. And that was the persecuted church. And the word Smyrna, the root of that word is myrrh. And it's actually a plant. And myrrh is a perfume, but it comes from a plant that the way you get the perfume out of the plant is that you crush it. And when you crush it, what's on the inside just comes oozing out, and it's myrrh. And it smells really good. I remember years ago preaching through that thing. And when I did that, it dawned on me, thinking about our people at Open Door, people in general, people of faith in particular, that we sometimes don't smell real good with small things. I mean, we get irritated by how long the line is at the grocery store. The dumbest things sometimes tip us over. But the truth is, the life of God in you and me, I think we do much better than we think. When we get crushed, it will smell good. I think there's myrrh in there. I do. Yep.
And we have to allow ourselves to be crushed to get to the places of beauty or sweet smelling. If you're just resisting the crush,
right,
you don't get to find those places of
sweetness.
Sweet.
And I do think too that those. This is a weird analogy, but when you talk about the crushing and the smell, sometimes those smells are, you just get a whiff of it. We used to say that all the time about the things of the Spirit, that we want the kingdom of God in its full expression to be here right now. And we don't get that now. It's already, but not yet. But every once in a while, the veil pulls back and you get a glimpse. And I think I would just invite people to pay attention to when the veil pulls back and ask God to help you get that and see that and smell it. Stuff like that comes at unexpected times, often in crisis though. Yeah. When all of, it really is, this is stuff, it kind of sounds preachy almost, but it's when all the scaffoldings of our life, the things that kind of hold us up and we don't even know that's what we're leaning on, when those start getting kicked out from under us, we go, whoa, what the heck is going on? And disorienting for sure. It's what we're all feeling. And we just, we keep looking for ways to control it and get it back to normal. And then we come into something like this where it might not ever be normal, like the way we define normal again. And I settle down when that happens. It's like, oh, okay, quit trying so hard to make it something different than it is, except that even, I don't know, this sounds morbid maybe, but I've had this thing in my life over the years of this thing I'm anxious about. I play out the worst thing that could happen and I accept it. Okay. And I'll still be okay. Now, sometimes the worst thing happens, and most of the time it doesn't. But internally, spiritually, there's this, that didn't sound like spiritual language, but there's this giving that to God. If it is the worst thing I can imagine, I'm still okay. And then it doesn't mean you don't feel it, and it doesn't mean you don't get scared, but it does mean you quit trying to control the whole thing and maybe living in fear, because all will be well.
Such beautiful and uncomfortable ways to view what's happening to each of us. Whether we're experiencing job loss or more stress in our job, or kids home or not kids home, or being quarantined because you're sick. I mean, there's so many different, I think, ways that all of us are experiencing this right now.
Yeah.
Some of what I hear you're saying is allowing the crushing to happen, allowing the desperation, allowing the pain, the discomfort. And if we allow ourselves a pause and hear the other invitation, maybe what will come is some good, some sweet.
Yeah.
And I can't think of anything better. I've already had conversations with friends about how this might be the best thing that happened to our families. Could this even be the best thing that happens to the church? That in our oppression, in our desperation, and I wouldn't wish COVID on anyone at this point.
No, I know.
But what's happening in our society, what we're being forced to do, could maybe be some of the best that God has for us.
Yeah.
If we are ready to allow it,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. And I don't know, I don't want to beat this to death, but in my own mind, this thing of playing out the worst thing, like you mentioned earlier, people are losing their jobs and what's going on at church. And I think this could be a very good thing for the church. It might not be good financially for the church. So, but play out the worst case scenario. What instinctively a lot of leaders want to do and guides want to do is say, no, you won't lose your job. No, it won't be that bad. But what if it is that bad? It doesn't feel morbid to me, because I think, no, you might lose your job. We might lose the house. We might get COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a perfect segue to how we talked about ending this.
Okay.
Just that quote that we've talked about so many times from Paula DRC. Mm-hmm. And I just think when you're faced with a list of unchangeables, I'm not supposed to be leaving my house. I mean, I can't control anything at this point, really, right? And she has a list of things that she knows to be true. So will you share that with us now?
I will. The best part of this list is that she wrote these and came up with these certainties. And ironically, Paula DRC, like Richard Rohr, is not about certainty. It's like trusting God in uncertain things. But what had happened was her husband and her young, I think 1-year-old daughter, while she was pregnant with their second child, her husband and their daughter were killed in an accident by a drunk driver. And so she went into this obvious place of despair and whatever it was. And all of the things she was certain of became uncertain. And shoot. Yeah. So at the end of the day, this is what she was certain of. I am certain, she said, remember the context, that everything is gift. That's a refrigerator magnet saying, unless the person who's saying it just lost her husband and child, and now they're a widower and their unborn child doesn't have a father, and they're still saying everything is gift. I'm curious, just curious about that. I'm certain, second thing, we are entitled to nothing. Who says that? I mean, that just pushes things in me. She should be, And maybe she did shake her fist at God in her process at some point. I don't know. But shouldn't she be shaking her entitled to nothing? What? That's about relinquishment, right? Letting go. All great spirituality is about letting go. You need to control. You need to win. Look good. Be healthy. Holy crap. This is a good one. I am certain that running from darkness, trying to get away from our pain and whatever, only leads to more darkness. I am certain that running from our darkness only leads to more darkness. I am certain the wells for joy and pain are not separate. I am certain that darkness is ultimately held by the light. And I am certain that bitterness and healing are a choice. There's not a magic wand for that one. So, anyway, I know.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Paula and Julian. And
Wait. Thank you. Just say thank you, oh wise one.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That's in my script.
I know. That's why I stick with the script. Okay.
Thank you, oh wise one.
You're welcome. Little grasshopper.
Maybe this will be the only time we ever do this. They'll maybe click off the internet. Who knows what's going to happen? This was really fun.
It was.
Thanks for giving us a little excerpt of what's rolling around in your head, and I hope we get to do it again.
I'm writing a book. Excited about that.
He's a writer now.
I'm writing.
Well, you told me you were a writer already.
I am. I forgot.
Okay, that's episode 2.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye, everyone.